Thank you, all of you that are here tonight. I know it's blustery out, and we probably would all rather be home on our couch drinking something warm, but this is important, and I appreciate you all making it out here. I'd also like to thank Renee Zimmerman for standing in for me at last month's forum while I was out of town. So I'm sure she did a great job, and everyone enjoyed that. So. What we're going to do tonight, tonight's format is going to be just a little different than our past forums, if you've joined us or watched those previously. We're going to sit down tonight, we'll have a conversation. We're going to give each candidate a chance to answer a question first. We'll let the other candidate have a short rebuttal, and then the original candidate who answered the question will get 30 seconds to give a response to that. So hopefully we'll get a little more of a dialogue here now that we're down to our final two candidates, and maybe we'll see some differing opinions on a few issues, and you'll be able to make some decisions on which one of these candidates to support. I also want to remind people that ballots are in the process of going out right now, so they will be in your mailbox shortly. They're postmarked or dropped in a ballot box by November 7th. So get that done early. And that way you don't have to worry about it at the last second and get your vote in. It's important that we all cast those votes. So I'll introduce our candidates here in just a moment, but I think, I apologize, I got to turn around to move a slide here so we can look at one thing to give you some context for tonight. As we mentioned in previous candidate forums, because growth is such a top concern for Issaquah right now, we like to share a little bit of information about the Growth Management Act of 1990, and this is a state law that's been in place since 1990, and it more or less it governs the way in which communities need to grow, that they have to have a comprehensive plan for that growth, and that they have to meet certain growth targets. And we learned in a previous forum that Issaquah has not only met our growth targets, but well exceeded it. We're way ahead of schedule of what the Growth Management Act says we need to be. But it is nice to give folks some context to say the city isn't just growing because we want to or anything like that. It's actually mandated by state law. So really the city has to figure out how they're going to work within that state law to do it sustainably, do it in a manner that we all can appreciate and enjoy, and that it gets us to those targets on time, and in our case maybe ahead of schedule. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our two candidates here. To my right is Paul Winterstein. Paul has served on the city council, current city council member, 2007 through 2011. He was on the city's first Human Services Commission, and he served 3 years on that commission as the chairperson. Two-term city council member since 2012. He has held the role of council president in that time. He's a 33-year professional in the software industry, focusing on business intelligence and analytics solution, and lives on Squawk Mountain with his wife, Michelle, in the home where they raise their 4 children. So please help me welcome Paul. And to my left is Mary Lou Pauley. She is a current sitting council member, first elected in 2013, and is a current member. She's currently serving as the deputy city council president in her current term. She served as a volunteer commissioner on the city's development commission from 1994 to 2013. Quite a stretch there. She works as an engineer in the private sector, and her husband Carl live in the woods in Mortgage Ridge, or did you move? Did I get that wrong?
Moved to downtown.
Downtown, that's right, okay. So, and also raised their 2 children here in Issaquah. So help me welcome Mary Lou Pauley. So for our first question tonight, we're going to have a little bit of fun, actually, before we break into the answer and rebuttal format here. So the first one, you guys can, take a breath here and have some fun. So in our first candidate forum, we learned and we talked about that the mayor is not just a unilateral rule maker. The mayor, actually, their duty is to carry out the wishes and the decisions of the city council and manage city staff and make sure that they're delivering on the things that the city council does. But what I have here tonight, you guys might not even know that one of you will get to hold this when you become mayor. I have the mayor's magic wand. And so the question here, and I'm going to start with Mary Lou, within the scope of the mayor's power in the decision-making authority that you'll have, I'd like you to think about your first year in office and tell us a little bit about the specific things you will do as mayor in your first year that you want to accomplish that doesn't necessarily require city council action, something you can do right away, whether it's staff-related or any other decisions that you think you'll make. And I'd like you to hold that while while you give your answer there.
Okay, this is kind of fun. It takes the stress down a little bit. Magic wands are always fun. It doesn't mean that we can actually just wave a wand and get exactly what we want. But just thinking about Nate's question, what kind of has broken my heart over the last few years is that I feel like our city is disconnected from you. I feel like we are doing one thing in City Hall and you might be asking us for something else outside. And that's led to frustration that I hear at your door. So I think if I could wave my magic wand, what I would do in the first year is reconnect with you. Find a way to bring government out to you in your community instead of asking you to come and see us in business meetings. The one thing that has been amazing about doorbelling has been that I've gotten to meet thousands of neighbors that I never knew before. And I kind of see the energy, the excitement, and the desire to get involved in the problem solving rampant in the community. I can't wait to get you all in, so I'll just wave my magic wand and say, that's what I want in the first year. I want 19,000 of us making decisions and not just 7.
Great, excellent. And Paul, if you would hold that, please, while you give your answer.
It's my first wand. Thank you, Nate. Hey, Nate, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Is this our opening statement?
This is your opening statement.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. Last fall, current Mayor Butler convened leaders from around the region, about 35, some elected other local nearby council members and mayors, state representatives, representative transit centers. And the purpose for that convening was to talk about regional traffic. And if you were there, and I don't know if it was taped. Was it taped? I don't know. Maybe that was taped. Mayor Butler did a great job of mentioning the Issaquah-Hobart Road like 3 times because the intent was just that, is to raise the visibility of that. Now, Mayor Butler did that because of a conversation I had about, the regional area, the area around us doesn't know what's happening within Issaquah. The biggest impact to us when it comes to our quality of life is the pass-through traffic. And we know what the source of the issues are, but do the others? Does the county, does the state, if we got them all together, would they say the same thing or would they tell different stories? So now that's moving forward. I tell you that because that's a great example of what a mayor can do that a council person cannot. A council person can have an idea and we can pass legislation. Because the council is the legislative body. The mayor is the executive body that carries out the laws and all of that. So on your behalf, on the behalf of the citizens, the mayor has the ability to move and call and convene and bring people together that otherwise never would. And to get out. Another thing I like about it as well is, okay, my time is up. I didn't realize that so quickly. So that would be the number one, that thing that the mayor can do that is so special that the council can, is convening people for the benefit, throughout the region for the benefit of our city.
So I will take this coveted one back until November 7th. I do have to apologize because I didn't let the candidates know that was going to be their opening statement point until Paul posed the question. So out of fairness, I'd like to offer that to Mary Lou. Please take this as a moment to just take a minute to do an opening statement. I would prefer it not be looked at as a rebut to what Paul said. We're going to get to traffic issues in a minute, but maybe just introduce yourself as a 60-second opening statement, please.
Maybe a second wish with the wand?
Yeah, and that's my fault.
Thank you for coming tonight. It's raining, it's cold, and it's dark, and you still chose to come here tonight instead of staying home to watch it on TV. You know what I really want to bring tonight, and I've heard it from almost everybody I talk to, I don't see the differences between the two of you. And I really like the format that the group that has organized this tonight has put out there. I want you to go away and understand we're extremely different. And I am glad that they've set up this venue and Nate is here. So we are going to have our questions and the answers. And at the end of that, what I think would be success tonight is you're all nodding your heads, you're all knowing, I know what the differences are between these two, and I know who I want to be my next mayor. So thanks for coming tonight.
Appreciate it. Thank you, and sorry for the curveball there. So we're going to go ahead and start then with the...
That wasn't my opening statement.
That wasn't your opening statement? Okay, now I got myself into hot water. So we're going to go ahead and go with Paul. Opening statement, please, for a quick 60 seconds.
All right. Thank you all for coming this evening. A lot of faces I'm familiar with and seen before, and like Mary Lou said, I know it was could have been difficult, so thanks for, because of the weather, thanks for making it. And I was actually going to say something very similar. I hear the same thing. What is the difference between you two? And that is my number one objective, and I hope it's yours as well. It sounds like it is, Mary Lou. That when you leave here this evening, you can say very clearly and definitively, you know what the key differences are between each of these candidates, between Mary Lou and I. And the key areas I think I'm going to want to explore tonight. One is traffic. I think it's very important. You're going to hear real differences. And you can right now or at any time afterwards go to paulwinterstein.com/traffic and get a lot more details of the differences that we're going to talk about. The other one is going to be about growth, and actually it's going to be about growth here in the Highlands and what actually happened here last time we convened in July. So we talk, and the differences about growth are going to be important. You also can go to paulwinterstein.com/growth to learn about those differences and get a lot of the details that we won't cover this evening.
Great, thank you. And so we'll bring us back onto the regularly scheduled program now. Thank you guys for cooperating there and making that quick. So the first question we're going to do, and I will have Mary Lou go first since Paul just gave his statement, is going to be on traffic. Shocking.
Shocking.
Are either of you shocked that that would be a topic we're going to talk about? So during the last few months, the two of you both have alluded to, have postured yourselves a little differently on your thoughts about traffic congestion. We'd like you to tell voters here the key parts of your plan to improve traffic through and around Issaquah. And you've got 2 minutes to give your answer.
Thanks, Nate. First part of that question, how to improve traffic through and around Issaquah. The through Issaquah piece is the main difference in our campaigns. Many, many decades ago, we knew we were going to grow and the city established a plan, but I believe there was a fundamental flaw in the logic. It was that if this was the way to drive home to Southeast King County, then we will figure out how to make that happen for you. Rather than the state, rather than the county, we have options in our town that you can drive through. And in 1993, when I came, there was already expressed frustration in town about the number of cars. It was a whole lot less than there is now. There's between 28 and 30,000 cars a day on Front Street. And the majority of those, almost 80%, are coming from south of 18. So not only are we having Miramont and May Valley, who actually are within our travel shed and should be using that as an access to I-90, we're having Southeast King County come through. That's a huge problem. Rather than look at slowly allowing the traffic to increase, it needs to reduce. That's the primary difference between the two campaigns. I believe we have local options in order to turn Front Street into what it should be, an urban designed street through the center of our historic town, a place you come to, not a place you go through. I will pledge not to spend, or propose to council not to spend any of your tax dollars to make it easier for Southeast King County residents to get to the highway when that responsibility clearly falls on the shoulders of the state and the county. Your local tax dollars will be spent on projects that make it easier to get around Issaquah, easier to manage the retail traffic that comes to town, and we appreciate that we're a regional shopping hub, but it's really hard for us to move around on Saturday as well. So my commitment is not to find ways to move more cars through town. My commitment is to spend your tax dollars to help you get to where you want to be.
Thank you. And Paul, a 2-minute response to that.
Thank you. And again, I want to mention I have more information at paulwinterstein.com/traffic. The difference between Mary Lou and I on traffic is I did not just hear a solution. I heard desires. I heard I'm gonna not do something, and I'm gonna spend money a certain way. Those are not solutions. And we've had a number of occasions as council members sitting in front of the camera where the same question has come up. And I've made that information available for all of you to review on my website at paulwinterstein.com/traffic. And so the difference that we're talking about is there are 3 roads that drain this, that people pass through for the evening PM, majorly, that affect the valley floor. There's State Route 900, there's Issaquah Hobart Road, and there's State Route 18, which is actually a viable alternative. The difference is, that we've stated publicly, is that King County, which owns the Issaquah Hobart Road, should, and it will be my prime #1 objective, is to work with them, and I'm going to ask all of you to join me because there's a lot of competition for regional dollars. We have to speak up. The Hobart Road is pinched. It's got pinch points, and there needs to be solutions to unclog that road. Is there a roundabout at May Valley Road? Are there turning lanes and turning pockets? King County has to identify that. And we need to encourage them to do that, because when that road doesn't get plugged up, guess what? Front Street doesn't get plugged up. Newport Way isn't plugged up. Sunset and 2nd Avenue are not plugged up when those do. So that's #1. #2 is to continue work. We want to get some cars off that. That's why working with the state, you need to help me there too, and let them know that this is an issue, that when State Route 18 has the capacity that it should, people will choose to bypass Issaquah and go on State Route 18. It's those 2 things. I want to do them both. And we have to get the network working. You can help me with the county and the state on both of those roads.
Thank you. And Mary Lou, a 30-second response to that.
Thanks. So the fundamental disagreement is that those solutions rely on others, other tax dollars, other voters to agree that they want to spend the money there. We've been asking for 20 years. It hasn't happened. On Front Street, some of the things I'm seeing and hearing at your door is, why don't you put parking all the way down to the south end of town? When I enter at the south, why doesn't it look like a city street? Why don't you have 2 lanes with turn pockets? Why don't you have more pedestrian crossings? Why don't you raise some of those pedestrian crossings? Why don't you have an all-way scramble? There's a long list of projects that you have come up with in the community that you said would make that street work better. That's what I would fund with your dollars.
Thank you. Great. And so let's see, Mary Lou went first last time, so Paul, we'll have you go first this time. So since we last were here, you guys have endured some very long council meetings on the topic of the King County Island annexation and zoning discussion, the property just to the west of Swedish Hospital that is now underway with the annexation process. As mayor, what is your take on the future of that property and that process? What does that look like for you? What are your priorities when it comes to seeing that through to the end?
Well, Nate is referring to an annexation of some land that's technically in the county. We're bringing it into the city. The city owns a parcel of that. We just asked, set the zoning for some of that to be open space. Actually, this hooded hill, the treed hillside out there is actually zoned for residential right now. So we're zoning part of it for open space and part of it for the top part for a school. Zoned for community facilities. This is a big difference between Mary Lou and I. When that issue arose, that the parcel on the top, I'll call it the hilltop, might be a good location for a school. It was very clear that it's wooded right now. It's also in proximity. There's some narrow roads around there. It's in proximity to the West Ridge that's already there. And so we saw some conflict right away. Now, some of you may be your own boss. Some of you work for bosses. And what kind of, I want you to ask you to think about the kind of person that you prefer working for. Have you been in a situation where maybe things haven't gone perfectly good for you, but you need to go to the person in charge and say, hey, this isn't working out. I need you to work with me to help me get across the line here. That was the approach I took as council member towards this issue. There are great people, some of them in this room, who believe that the preservation of those trees and that view shed was #1 priority. And by an 85% margin, those that sent us council emails, their preference was, no, it should be a school. 56 emails in the space of about 2 weeks, and 85% of them were in favor of a school. I acknowledge both of those. I recognize the value of both, and worked with all parties and the rest of my colleagues on the council to help them understand that we have to be sensitive. We can't take a very hard, just like you don't want your boss to be like no, that was terrible that you're doing something wrong. You want them to be understanding and bring you together and get all parties to the table, listen to everybody to help resolve
Thank you,
an
Paul.
issue.
You'll have a 30-second rebuttal on that. So Mary Lou, the question to you, as mayor, what's your vision for that property? How do you envision that process going forward?
Great. So I heard a really interesting quote about that, and that was that sometimes you have to go slow to go fast. The community's screaming for schools. New schools open, and we have portables. Obviously, this is a huge concern for people who moved to this area because of the amazing school district. So as mayor, what I think is really important is that when I say go slow to go fast, council has to have all of the information. It has to be in a legally defensible manner in order for us to make a good decision. Unfortunately, with the first go-around on this, we didn't have all the pieces. And some people on council were ready to vote without all the information in front of them. I actually think the council did the right thing, asking for more information to ensure that we could proceed with this in an appropriate way for the community. As far as the future use of the parcel, this is an amazing piece of land. And as mayor, the council and the mayor will get to entertain an offer from the school district to purchase this, to build a school. At that point in time, the due diligence, and we do have some school board members here, falls onto the school to determine, is this the right property for a school? There's a hospital nearby. People are concerned about ambulances. There's a forested slope and a forested ridge. That's important to the community. That's a decision that the school district is going to have to look at all of those pieces of information and decide. They're the ones who are going to decide if it's appropriate for school. As mayor, I'm happy if it's a school. If it's not a school, I'd be happy if it's a park. And maybe it would be housing, but when we get to the growth numbers, I'll tell you why I probably wouldn't be happy if it was housing.
Great, thank you. And Paul, a 30-second response to that.
The school has a unique opportunity here, and this community has spoken loudly that your preference that land be used as a school. And I also value families. I know about the crowding that's in the schools. I know about not everybody even has their own locker. So from the very beginning, fully aware that the value of that view shed to others, I decided that I was going to find ways to make it work for all with a preference toward the school location. And you can go look at the record as well, how balanced I was in that approach.
Thanks, Paul.
all the way.
That's time for that. So we're going to stay with the topic of future development in the Issaquah Highlands. And as some folks might be aware, and some maybe not, the 20-year development agreement for the Issaquah Highlands is expiring at the end of this year. We also have a building moratorium in place, and we've also got a central Issaquah plan that needs to be revisited. A lot of folks, including both candidates here, have mentioned moving development down to the floor of Issaquah and away from Issaquah Highlands. However, Issaquah Highlands isn't complete yet. We still have sites that are designated as receiving sites for residential units, and we also have commercial areas that are now going to be no longer under a development agreement. So as mayor, what is your vision for how we finish the Issaquah Highlands, that it gets close to that original intent as possible for that urban village concept? And Mary Lou, will go first with you.
Thanks. So actually, this is an exciting time. When I first moved here was when the village concept was coming into discussion and people were learning about what was going to happen here and what was going to happen in Tallis. If you go back and look at those original documents, the best word I can use for it is master plan community. You're going to have it all. You're going to have housing, community amenities, you're going to have schools, jobs, it'll all be here. Some of the pieces that didn't come yet, that we're really hoping will come, are jobs and more schools. Over the course of the development agreement, there were some decisions made to add more housing. And there have been requests, frequent and repeated requests from landowners who purchased, say, commercial property to build residential units. These requests absolutely drive me crazy. I mean, there was a vision, master plan. You thought there were going to be 3,500 houses. There happens to be now over 4,000 planned, and still people are asking the council to consider changing more commercial space into housing units. I don't support any of that. I believe we should put a zoning code in place that follows the original vision. So we've hit a few bumps along the road. Where is that second school going to go? If the school district determines that that's not an appropriate site, guess what, folks? We have a problem because we got to find another piece of land with them. We have to help them do this. I want to see, my vision is that we get enough schools so that we have students that aren't in portables, that we have enough commercial, that the jobs actually show up here so people do not have to get in their car and get on a highway or take a bus to work. You can actually make the choice that you were hoping to get if you moved here 15, 20 years ago, live, work, play. So I want to respect the old agreement. I want to put in a zoning code that allows us to get there. And my answer to transfer of development rights, I do not believe the majority of the Highlands, maybe possibly in the retail area as an exception, requires any additional zoning or any additional density. Let's stick with the plan we had. It was a really good one, and that's where I hope to go as mayor.
Thank you. And Paul?
Thank you, Nate. So density, especially here in the Highlands, is clearly a concern of many of you. We've heard it, the spoken word, we've seen the written word. And interestingly enough, yes, the council is well underway. Staff and council are well underway right now of retiring the development agreements, putting in zoning, which matches what's basically already on the ground, putting on overlays on top of that so that it really is very tight, so that existing areas and their character really cannot be transformed in the future. However, the lower bench down there isn't completely developed, and something very interesting is happening. Many of you know that Shelter Holdings has been up here asking, and what can we do more? Can we do more? We heard from them in front of council recently that they've come up with a plan that will work with this, what they understand the end of the DA is going to look like. But then at the last moment, staff added proposed a requirement, this is city staff, a requirement that actually would require them to come in with even more density than Shelter Holdings was proposing. So I have a question for all the Highlands residents in the audience this evening. Think about that. Shelter, who owns part of that, was planning on something that was going to fit within the zoning that was going to come forward. City staff is coming forward with a potential requirement that would require them to be even more dense. What do you favor? Who's in favor of the increased density? So it would, I see a couple hands. So just think about that. So I think that when you get a property owner who says, I can make it work this way, guess what? It doesn't look like the University Village. Then there's the problem and the rub with this. The urban concept and the village that was envisioned here for the Highlands, there doesn't seem to be the economy. There doesn't seem to be the economics. There doesn't seem to be the market demand. And so, considering that proposal is going to be very close to what we're going to get in the future.
Thanks, Paul. And Mary Lou, 30 seconds.
Thanks. So two telling differences between Paul and I. I did not vote in favor of the polygon agreement that added additional density up here, changing a 265 housing unit thing into 405 units. I voted against it. I carry that philosophy with me into the mayor's office. Enough is enough. Paul voted for it. And second, by making a building more vertical, what you're doing is something called increasing the floor area ratio. You don't get more units for that. You just build a taller building. What you might end up getting is a plaza or a park or an amenity out of it. So I will support something like that. Thanks.
Thank you. So when we discuss the next phase of the Highlands, and then also knowing that future growth will come to Issaquah, the Central Issaquah Plan that was adopted several years back, which laid out the vision for development on the valley floor, I think we've all collectively taken a pause on that right now, and it'll need to be reevaluated. The Central Issaquah Plan had a lot of components to it, a lot of design elements, a lot of zoning. And now that we've taken a pause, as mayor, can you describe to us what specifically do you think in the Central Issaquah Plan needs to be revisited, revised, and adjusted to help us reach that original vision? And Paul, we'll start with you.
Well, interesting question, because the council, of course, is what is going to define what the components of that plan. And the moratorium identified a number of categories. So this is a question, this is one of those ones where the next mayor has to ensure that what gets carried out is what the council does adopt. And so there are a number of key elements that led to the moratorium, and they were based upon what was and wasn't happening in the central area. Parking was one, much more surface parking than the structured parking that we had hoped for. A certain building of a certain size, color, shape, and location showed up. And people were wondering, what is that? That doesn't fit the character, and it doesn't have the engagement with the urban environment. It wasn't mixed use. It didn't have any affordable housing in it, and so the Atlas project itself was a big instigator for that moratorium. And that's another piece that the council is working on right now. And in fact, two elements are very close to being complete. Again, the mayor has to see that these now get implemented. One will be the vertical mixed use component that the council just adopted very recently, and we're very close to completing also the urban design and development standards to make sure we get the look and the function and the street engagement and get in the architecture the type of buildings that speaks to who we are in Issaquah in terms of the look and the feel of the environment. Those are the major ones. Another component of that is affordable housing. So we've already taken the step, the council, the mayor is going to have to make sure this gets implemented to require affordable housing with any housing that goes into known as the urban core area. So that was another change that we've made. All of those were critical to the fine-tuning of the central area plan. The council is very close to wrapping those up. The mayor will have to be sure that they get implemented.
Thank you. Mary Lou, 2 minutes.
Thanks, Nate. Number one, we don't get out of the moratorium until we get our homework done. We are not building the kind of community down on the valley floor that you asked us for. The mayor is the one who's going to propose ending the moratorium. I will not do it until we are ready. Raise the bar. We had some standards and codes in place that ended up, we built some things we didn't like. We built some things you didn't like. You told us loud and clear you didn't like it. I want inclusionary zoning. And if people aren't familiar with that, it's very simple. We're not going to ask them to build housing units that are affordable. We're going to require them. It's going to be part of our code. We have a very small requirement in a small part of the central Issaquah area. Nope, I want it everywhere in central Issaquah. I want a builder coming to town to know when you build an apartment building here or condos, we need different sizes and we need different levels of affordability because we're all different. And what we're getting is one kind of product. And so as mayor, I'm going to propose to the council inclusionary zoning down on the valley floor. I think the last thing is we're having a hard time making decisions on council. And I'll tell you why. We don't get good information. The information comes from the mayor's office. For example, I did not vote for the polygon increased density because they didn't tell us how that compared to other projects with housing affordability ever. It's a simple table to put together. I'm not going to put a deal in front of a council and not explain to them if it's a good deal or a bad deal. So for example, the one that came up in the Highlands, the city had to give $1.65 million piece of land in order to get a developer to do something we want them to do to make us a better community. That's not going to happen on my watch when I'm mayor. I'm not going to put a bad deal on the table. I'm not going to ask you to subsidize what the builder should be doing when they come to build in this town. So as mayor, those are my promises to you. Thanks.
Thanks. And Paul, 30 seconds.
So inclusionary zoning is what I was referring to earlier, and the council has already started to take action on that with the adoption of our housing strategy work plan. So that is coming as part of this. The other thing I'm going to say is that this is an area, and there's another part of my website, paulwinterstein.com/growth. We sat here back in July and heard Mary Lou say that she was against the density. But in fact, during the meeting when we voted on it, she indicated her support for a proposal that also did include the 100 TDRs. And I've explained all of that. So the proposal that passed and the proposal that didn't pass
Thanks, Paul.
both had the same
We're
number
at
of
time.
units.
Thank you. So moving on to the next question here, we're going to pivot a little bit here into public safety. And I think in a global level, I think we're all aware of public safety being a concern for us on many different levels, including right here in our neighborhood and where we live. And public safety is a big concern of the community. So as mayor, what are going to be your priorities for addressing concerns of public safety? What are some specific things you plan to do to make that happen? And I believe, Mary Lou, you're going first on this one.
Thanks. Great question. Number one concern at the doors right now is safety. Safety and security and the trends in what is going on. So what I'm hearing from you as I knock on your doors is that you are noticing, that I'm taking my sticker off, that you are noticing or you have the perception that parcel thefts and crimes like that are on the rise. That as you drive around town, you're seeing irresponsible driving behavior or people cutting through your neighborhood and making you feel unsafe or not wanting to have your children play on the front yard because of driving behaviors. You're telling us that we're not doing enough enforcement. Recently, the council president and I asked for the data, and we got the data, and your feelings are right. We're not doing enough enforcement. We have had 3 to 4 vacancies on our current policing staffing levels for 3 to 4 years. We don't have policemen in the jobs on the street doing the enforcement that you expect. Number one is, Mayor, let's fill the vacancies. And that's an easy thing to say, but both in firefighting and police services right now, it is hard to get new recruits. They do have to go through a period of training. The police chief has currently asked for 3 additional positions. I actually think that we ought to staff up to the level that we have now and look at the data, which up until this point has been not transparent to council and definitely not transparent to you. Good news is we are actually going to have a crime dashboard available on the city's website by December. And so instead of just calling and saying, I feel like you guys should be doing something, you're going to look at the statistics and say, get your butt out there and take care of those people who run red lights. Take care of those people who park in handicap spots or block driveways. That's not the Issaquah we used to be. So number one, get the bodies in the job. Number two, get you more information so that you can understand and be validated in your feelings. Yes, things are different now than they were 10 years ago, but we can make it better. If we need more police officers after we take these steps, then I will make sure that that's a top priority because you need to feel safe and secure in our town.
Thank you. And Paul, 2-minute response.
Absolutely. Your safety. You want to change the character of our town? Compromise on safety. You're worried about the value of your property? Compromise on safety. That is not an option. Unfortunately, now there's 2 ways to also think about this. If you look at the numbers relative to neighboring cities, we're a pretty safe place. But I tell you, once you're victimized by a crime, it doesn't feel that way. It doesn't matter what the numbers say. And that's very unfortunate. Another thing to look at is staffing. Of course, the council determines and funds how much staffing there is. Oh, yeah, well, there's a proposal from the police department and from the mayor's office, but the council makes that final decision. The chief of police reported to us last week that his ask for 3 additional positions for 2018 will allow him only to continue to deliver the same levels of service that you're getting today. And the major level of service categories are run a jail, patrol, safety, and respond to calls, and number 3 is actually traffic enforcement. So the proposal today is just to get us to a level where we can maintain what we have today. I asked him, if you had more, what would happen? He said the number one thing, his priority would be that we would do more on patrol. We would focus on safety. If we could get even more, what would it be? Then we could do even more on traffic enforcement. I asked him, what if we don't get the 3? What if something doesn't happen? He goes, I prioritize public safety with patrol as number 1. If we actually go backwards, then actually we'd get less traffic enforcement. So that's kind of the dynamics that are in place. And all the towns in King County are short on the police that they want. Everybody does. If you got a child who maybe wants to go in law enforcement, there's a lot of jobs right there right now. And so that is a real challenge that we have. So as a council member right now, I'm not going to wait to the end of the year. As a council member right now, we have to decide, and I'm definitely in favor of adding even more so that we can improve our level of service.
Time. And Mary Lou, a 30-second response there.
Thanks. So I really disagree with Paul. I also work with Eastside Fire and Rescue, and their calls for service volume have gone up similarly as our community grows, as you would expect, the police calls. And they took an entirely different approach. They went to their equivalent of a mayor, and they looked at policies, procedures, protocols. How many people do we send to a call, to each kind of call? What can we do internally first to address it before we add $1 million in salary to the budget? That's the approach I'm going to take. I know you want them out on the street, but there have been 3 or 4 vacant cars for 3 or 4 years. Let's get them filled. And as mayor, I want to look on the inside, policies, procedures, and protocols. Oh, thanks very much. 30 seconds is really short.
It is. Nice job. So in the last 2 questions, I'm going to weave in a couple components of the themes from the audience tonight, because of course we can't get to everybody's question, but I'll do my best to kind of weave it in here. So we're going to stay on the topic of public safety in some level. I think we're all aware of the topic right now coming down from King County about safe injection sites. Mm-hmm. And we're just curious to know what your take is on Issaquah being or not being a recipient of a safe injection site. And I believe it's Paul's turn to go first on this one.
You know, that topic of safe injection site, you're also going to hear the phrase community health engagement locations, or CHELs. There's something I know about that, and there's something that I don't know. What I know is it scares a lot of people, and justifiably, because the drug business is dark. And maybe you know somebody, maybe yourself, or maybe you've got a child or a close friend that has been captured by that net. And it's not and we do not want to do anything to in any way encourage or potentially foster any growth in that area at all. That's what I know, and I know that people don't want that. I know for a fact. What I don't know is whether or not these CHELs work or not. I've read some research. I've listened to people both pro and con. I've listened to addicts who have recovered. One that says they might, the other says no. I've listened to people who have lost loved ones, some who say, I don't think they're going to work, others that say, I think they will. They maybe could have helped me save my son if they existed. So I know how the community feels, and I think that's very key. I don't know yet how these CHELs work. The good news is there's nothing coming to Issaquah. There's a long process that would ever have to follow, and we would actually, the council, would actually have to put together a resolution and say to King County Council and say, we want your help with establishing a CHEL in Issaquah. We're not even considering that. So the other side of all of this as well, and when we just talk about a safe injection site, but what about education, prevention, and treatment? I'm going to put a plug in right now for the Issaquah Schools Foundation, a new program they're starting called YODA. It's about actually helping young kids learn about how to deal with anxiety and stress in their lives. It's part of that continuum of helping people not ever fall into drugs. That full education, training, and prevention is the conversation we should be happening. CHELs will happen, that conversation will happen somewhere else and maybe come back to us here. Let's have the conversation that actually helps people now.
Mary Lou.
So I'm actually going to tell you that Paul and I agree on something, but then there's a piece I don't agree on. So the agreement piece. What this community wants to talk about is education, treatment, and intervention. And we have got an amazing partner in Eastside Fire and Rescue, and we have a fire chief who actually wants us to think outside of the box and talk about better outcomes for the people that they're picking up. So when they're on a call and they're picking up somebody who's having a drug overdose or an alcoholic who can no longer function, they want more options in the toolbox. I know that's what you guys want to talk about. That's what taxpayers want to talk about. So I voted for the ban. I'd vote for the moratorium. And this is the part where Paul and I don't agree right now. Our whole job on council and as a mayor running the office is to make sure that we are in control of our land use choices. So I know King County's put out there that they're looking for a partner, and I know there's a process to go through, but there was an article today in the Seattle Times. And the article said that what if we stop talking about CHELs as individual operations and we start talking about putting it in hospitals? Well, we have a hospital, and they're allowed to do this kind of business already. If we don't have a ban on this business, it doesn't really matter what King County does. It may end up that we may see this through another format. I don't think our community's had a conversation about it yet. So I think we need a ban or a moratorium. We need to understand what this is, what it could do, and whether or not this community says this is the right place for it. So I actually do think this was the right thing to do, was to vote for the ban or vote for the moratorium. And I think, regardless of what King County does, please pay attention and stay engaged, because we have a hospital in town. And we want to make sure we understand and we're making the community decisions that we want to make.
Thank you. Paul, 30 seconds.
Yeah, the article she referenced was from Danny Wiesnett. He's an editorialist, writer for the Seattle Times. And that is an interesting suggestion about potentially using hospitals. I agree. A conversation has to happen. I know there's actually, so I just looked around, I know there's some people in this room who feel very dearly about this. They care about the education and the treatment. Issaquah, that I know, also is very good at having difficult conversations. That's what I want to facilitate. Council can't do that, but I can facilitate that for better lives in Issaquah through treatment and education.
Thank you. So we're going to wrap up here tonight with our last question on the riveting topic of city budget. Does that not sound thrilling?
Doesn't sound so.
Everybody's running back to their couch for their hot drink right now. Again, weaving in a theme from the audience today from several of the questions that came in. Mayor Butler just produced his proposed budget to the council here. A year from now, one of you will be doing the same. As mayor, when it's time for you to submit that budget, what are some very specific elements of that budget that you either plan to increase, reduce, or remove when you produce that budget? And along that line, is there any taxation changes that need to go along with that? So we will start with Mary Lou on that one.
Great, thanks. Budgets are actually why we sign up for council. If you sign up for council, it's because you like doing this stuff. But I realize it's not the most thrilling topic. The 4 budgets that I've had an opportunity to review, when I'm mayor, what I'm going to do differently is my introduction to the budget is going to be very brief. There's going to be 3 overarching themes, and you are going to be able to go into a budget document and you are going to be able to see dollars being spent on those themes. Last year I had a hard time, even though the mayor stated transportation was his #1 priority, it took me over 6 hours to pick and pull from all the different pages to figure out, okay, if it's #1, what exactly are we doing? Where are we doing it and how much does it cost? No, that's not going to be the budget that I present before council. My 3 overarching priorities, you're going to be able to find that information. I think the thing I really dislike the most about our current process is it's not transparent. So I'll give you an example. When developers come in, they pay us fees. They're coming to town. We got to build parks. We have to make sure that we keep up with the growing numbers. We don't tell you where we spend those fees on. We collect them. They go out the door. You should be able to see that in the budget document. You should be able to understand perfectly how your city runs by looking at a budget document, but you can't. Even this budget we have before us now doesn't show us. It may show us how much we've collected. It doesn't show you where, it doesn't show council, and it doesn't show you where we've spent it. So that's just one example of transparency. I think one of the reasons you don't pay attention is because we give you a budget document that is just horribly corporate, horribly huge, horribly complicated. If you know that your council members, people who like doing this, agree to go for 6 meetings for 3 hours, 18 hours to go through it, you know this is not being presented in a way that a person from the public would be able to see, where's my tax dollar going? She says this is important. Oh, here it is. This is what we're doing on parks. I get it. So those would be the changes I would propose when I'm mayor.
Thank you. Paul?
You know, at the beginning, Nate mentioned my career in computer science, and especially focusing on analytics and actually financial reporting is an area of expertise of mine. And I totally get the technical reason why our city has these challenges in terms of reporting the detail of how the money was used. Actually, the budget does a good job of categorically tell you how much we spent on parks and how much we did on transportation. It has a very difficult time to saying if when the money came in from this source, it actually went to this part of a specific project. And I know the technical challenges of that. We're actually implementing a new accounting system will actually make that reporting a lot easier. And Nate asked about my first budget as a mayor. But right now, we're embroiled in a budget right now. This is the time. The council fully has all the authority in the world to make the budget what it wants it to be. So I'm focusing on the one that's happening right now. One of the real things I'm proud of since I've been on council is raising the visibility and the understanding across the board about how we budget relative to our what we call ongoing expenditures relative to ongoing revenues. And that means we're not going to use one-time revenues to hire somebody who then now we have a long-term commitment to them. We're going to take a really hard look at the revenue that's rarely predictable, that's not because of some big project, a one-time thing, and make sure with the staffing, because that's half of what we pay for out of the general budget, we can fund that with our ongoing revenues. And so that is actually a very fundamental part of the way that we budget today. I'm very, very proud of that. One other major change I think that we do need to look at, and I don't think this is the year, so as a mayor I can help bring this in, but the talk has started. We do one-year budgets. And we actually have a good financial manager knows that there are ups and downs, and with a one-year budget, you're kind of tied. There are better ways to use your public resources with longer budgeting cycles to actually get the best return for your money.
Thank you. And Mary Lou, 30 seconds.
Thanks. Taxes, I don't think we need to raise them. Everybody knows that we already have a lid on what we can do, but I will watch the utility rates really closely, especially in light of the South Cove and Greenwood Point issues over water bills recently. We got to look at those funds and find out why the revenues are like that. This is the primary difference, and I think you're hearing it tonight. I'm going to give you a budget you understand, not one I have to explain to you. I don't need to be an accountant. I don't need to be an expert and sit here and explain terms to you. You will see very clearly and very transparently what your government is doing.
Thank you very much. And so that wraps up our questions for tonight. So we're going to give each of you just a moment to give some closing remarks, bring it home, let voters know why they should vote for you. Paul, I think you might have a website that you want to share with me. But we'll go ahead and let you give 60-second closing remarks here, and I'll start with Paul since I made a joke at his expense.
Thanks for the plug, Nate. Yeah, I think that was really important. I agree. There's been a lot of what's the difference. So my team and I put an effort into it. You can go to paulwinterstein.com, go to the issues area, /traffic or /growth. Very important information there for you to consume, to actually not only see kind of details about decisions and how we've done some things, but also get to know candidates as well, what kind of leadership and what we have done in these leadership roles. I think that's very important that you use that resource, paulwinterstein.com, to see that information. Thank you very much. It's an honor. It's actually humbling to ask for your vote. It's thrilled to be part of this great American institution. And I'm going to do one last very selfish plug. Sorry. Sitting over here is my wife, Michelle, and she's part of everything that I do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
A vote for Paul is also a vote for Michelle. Thank you.
Wait, you can only vote once, I thought. Mary Lou, go ahead.
Thanks. I would love to tell you my website address, but honestly, Zach handles that for me. He's at the back of the room. I have a lot of information there too, but you know what? That's not what this is about. This is about hearing year over year that we have issues in town and that while we may have a plan, we're not executing well. We need to have somebody in office who is going to take us in the right direction. We need to try new things. We need to pilot new things because what we're doing now isn't working. So I've heard the frustrations about traffic, about lack of schools, about building ugly buildings. I get it. I've got over 30 years experience at the executive level in both private and public sector. This is what I do. This is my skill set. I'm looking forward to being your next mayor because this is an amazing place and I think there are some ways to improve it, and I want you to help me do that. Thank you. I look forward to the election.
Thank you very much. Please vote, tell your friends, and we appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you very much.